Today we are going to talk about a highly requested video, which is my meditation experience. And I'm going to talk about the very beginning of my experience of learning to break down the beliefs that I had. And I was raised Catholic, and around the age of, I would say 19, 20, 21, I started to kind of think differently. And then I had a major eye-opening experience that it was a whole year of things that I witnessed myself, that it really just blew my mind. And that's when I really started to break down my beliefs. So we're going to fast forward to 2012, like 2011, 2012, around there. And we're going to talk about how I started to explore meditation. I was reading a book of Dolores Cannon. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, but she was someone who would do deep hypnotherapy. And I was interested in watching her videos and also her books. And I remember that I was, at that time in 2012, so much was going on with the whole, the end of a cycle, and a lot of people believe it was the end of time. It was a whole thing, 2012. But that is when I really started to step out of the box, in the sense of like conscious wise. So I started to explore and see other points of view, other perspectives, and I would listen to a lot of other people and their experiences and all these things. So I started doing meditation on my own I would say like at the beginning of 2012. And it was just me, in my room, on my bed, with my eyes closed. I always sat in a lotus position, and I would close my eyes for 10 minutes. I started like with 10 minutes, and then I would do like 15, 20 minutes. And then I moved into 30 minutes, and I would put a timer on my phone so that it would alert me when that time would, when I reached that time. Which, let me just say, it was not the best idea, because it will take you out of the meditation so fast and kind of almost startle you if you are deep into the meditation. So I don't recommend putting an alarm, because it will like take you out abruptly, just from my experience. And I was doing meditations, every so often, and I found it very peaceful. I found it very soothing. I started to realize that I was paying more attention to things, and I was becoming more aware, like more present. It was giving me more presence, and I found that very interesting. And one day I was meditating. I would go meditate sometimes at a park, and I would go meditate to this park that I would go to. And I was sitting underneath this huge tree. It was a beautiful tree. I was sitting underneath this tree. And mind you, when you're sitting on a tree, you are thinking like, oh my God, what happens if I'm meditating and there's an ant, or there is something's gonna bite me, or a bug, or something comes off an insect comes and bites me or attacks me while I'm meditating. I would think about all these things while I would sit under the tree. But I would learn to like allow my thoughts to be there, but still do the meditation anyway. And this meditation was very like, it's when I first experienced something very that left me very like, wow. I was meditating under the tree, and I think my meditation, I put it for like 25 minutes or so on my phone, and I went into a deep state of meditation. And while I'm in this deep state, I start to feel like I was a tree. And I started to question myself, like, why am I feeling like I'm a tree? Like, I'm a person, I'm sitting here underneath the tree. Like, I know I'm underneath the tree, like I'm sitting on the tree. Like, not on the tree, but I know that I'm sitting with the tree like behind me, and it's like above me. And I start to feel like I was a tree. Like this, my energy or my awareness, the observer me, which you can tap into. Let me just say, you can tap into that. You can tap into your awareness, and you can actually tell the difference between you and your consciousness. I've been able to learn to do that, and it comes with a lot of practice and a lot of meditation, I would say. So for the first time, I felt like I was not me, but I was a tree, and I can feel like the motion of like the wind and like touching the leaves, and how like I would sway. And I found that so interesting. I was like, wow, how did I just feel like I was a tree? And I can feel like the shape of the tree, like it was me. And I was so in awe by that. And I kept meditating. And that was like one of my first experiences where I had an experience where I felt like a tree. And that was really, really wild. And I continued my meditation experience. I continued meditating. Once I was meditating at night, and it was like a short meditation that I was doing, and I felt this was like the one that scared me. And this was still in 2012, like I said. This one scared me because this one, I was meditating in my room. It was nighttime, and I felt like a tennis ball at the very bottom of like where your perineum is. And I felt this really, really hot heat tennis ball that was twisting like from that area, and it was trying to move up, and it was so hot. I opened my eyes within seconds because I got freaked out. I did not know what was happening. Did not know that. I didn't know what was happening. I thought something had gone wrong. And I was like, wait a minute, what is that? What did I just feel? That's crazy. And at that time, I had a friend who lived in Hawaii, and his name was Ramika. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, because he was very into meditation, and he would do a lot of talk throughs about things, and he was the only person that I can ask, like, hey, what is this? Like, what just happened to me? And he explained to me that like that was energy, and the energy was, moving up my spine, and that's like your life force energy. And he explained to me this whole thing, and I was like, oh wow, cool. But I don't know if I want to feel that ever again, because that was very intense. So a few days after that, I was working at an office at this time. I was in an office, and I was in a cubicle in my own space. So the chair would actually lock me into my desk, where I would have to move away in order to get away from the desk. And it was one of those chairs that you can actually like rotate, but it had like handles, so you could not move it if you were sitting like inside the desk. So after this meditation experience where I felt the ball of heat trying to go up my spine, I am sitting at my desk and I'm looking at my computer, and I'm like, you know what? Because I started to implement like moments of stillness while I was in places that made me feel stressed. So I was at work, and I decided to close my eyes, and I close my eyes and I take a deep breath, and I close my eyes. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna breathe and allow my breath to go in and out. And I start to feel like I'm rotating around my body. But I know that I am still, and I know that I am sitting, and I know that I'm not moving. But my energy is moving in a rotation. And I was like, I would open my eyes and it would go away. And then I would be like, okay, let me do this again. I would close my eyes and it would rotate the opposite way. And I was fascinated by that, because I was like, what is that? Like, that is so bizarre. Like, how am I rotating and I'm not moving? And I remember I would open my eyes, look, and I'm like, I'm in the same place. I haven't moved. Like, the computer is right in front of me. I have not moved from my chair, and I would rotate. So I did that several times, experimenting, because I thought it was fun. And I continued meditating like that off and on, but nothing ever really more other so than becoming more aware and more conscious of my reactions and stuff. I started noticing that there was like my observer me was more present, so I was aware of things a lot more deeper than just like going about my day. Like, my observer self would step in and be like, hey, did you notice this? And I became more conscious. So, and it also helped me expand my mind a lot more, just meditating on my own without really knowing what I was doing. So then I meditated off and on from 2012 all the way through, till now. But I know I mentioned in other videos, in 2020, it was one of the darkest years I've ever experienced, especially from like mid-year all the way through like January of 2021, and even so to almost the beginning of March of 2021. And I was in such a bad place, and I mentioned, I believe 2 videos behind, about that I had a derealization moment where I completely knew that at that moment that I felt that way, that terrified me. I had to find something. I had to change something right away. It had to be done because I did not want to go through that or feel that ever again. And that was 2020. At the end of 2020, I was scrolling on YouTube and I saw this this breath work that it said intense breath work. I don't know what. It was like a breath work for your pineal gland, and I saw the name Breathwork by Joe Dispenza, and I was like, oh, I don't know what that is, but I'm not gonna do it. And I kept moving along. So, but I saw that at the ending of 2020. March, like the first week of March came along, or actually no, the ending of February came along, and my sister, she was watching a video on her phone, and it was a very inspirational, very empowering video, and she goes, look what someone sent me. And it was this whole thing about reprogramming, rewiring, and how the body and the mind is connected, and how you can overcome depression and how you can heal and all these things. And I was like, oh my God, that's so fascinating. And I'm watching this person give this entire like lecture for like 20 minutes. And I was blown away completely by everything that he was saying. And when I look at the title of the video, or not even the title, but I look at the video and I see at the bottom it says Joe Dispenza. And I was like, oh my God, I've heard this name before. And I look him up, and it was the same person that I saw in the ending of 2020 whose breath work came up on my feed. And I was like, okay, this is not a coincidence, because someone sent this to my sister, and my sister showed it to me. And I felt deep inside within my soul, like, pay attention. And I started to watch everything. I started to learn about the mind, the body connection, the emotions, how, the way that our brain is mapped and how our brain works. And I started to learn about epigenetics, neuroplasticity. I started to learn about all these things, the pineal gland, the function of the pineal gland, our frontal lobe, our amygdalas. Like, I started to learn about everything that you can think of. And I started to understand the science behind meditation. And there is no wrong or right way to do a meditation. Let me just start by saying that. There is no way to do a right or wrong meditation. Even if you're the kind of person that has a lot of you cannot stay still, just the intention of trying to meditate and closing your eyes for at least 5 minutes is going to make a difference in your mind. So even the effort will change something in your chemistry, in your mind, okay? And I started to look at his meditations, because there were some meditations that were available online at that time. It is hot. And I started to wander off his meditations, and I found this meditation that was like a global coherence meditation. And it was about it was about healing, but not like yourself, but it was about connecting to nature, to the animals, the people. And then he kind of takes you out of the earth, and you're outside and you're viewing the earth, and then you're the earth, you're bringing it closer to your heart, and you're like, it's this whole thing that was a global thing. And I started doing that meditation all the time. Like I would do it in my car when I was waiting for my mom, when she was doing like her supermarkets. I would sit in my car and do it. I would do it at home. I would do it outside. I would do it in the yard. I would always be doing that meditation. I just really liked that meditation. I felt like it was like connecting me to everything, and it was very special. And I already knew like the science of why, you know, it's good to meditate. And I started doing that meditation and other ones also. I think I really started with that one. It was like a global coherence meditation that was like on a live that he did, or like an event that he did. And it was like a 25-minute meditation that I was doing. And I remember that I started to implement gratitude, because at that time of my life, I was very angry at my ex. I was hurt by everything that happened with my ex, very hurt. And the way that he just, you know, left me, and the way that I felt like he didn't care about me. So I was not only struggling with, at that time, because that was January 1st of 2021, we lost one of the Yorkies that we had. And it was like 2021 was like, the beginning was very dark. So there was a lot of healing that I was doing. I was deeply hurt by the loss of my dog. She was a tiny little Yorkie. She was my mom, but I loved her. And all of the things that happened in 2020 had affected me so bad. Like everything that was going on in the world had affected me so bad. And the loss of my dog, my ex was treating me so much like I was trash, and I felt like I was abandoned by the entire world at this point, and I was in a very dark place. And you know, I started to show gratitude every single day. I was riding bike, and I would ride like 10-12 miles a day, and I would go out. Like I had already started meditating every single day. Sometimes I would meditate several times in a day, but I was doing a lot of rewiring and catching myself and reprogramming and catching, and watching a lot of like information about meditation, and also I watched a series called Rewire by Dispenza that's on Gaia. And I was watching all of these things to like learn, and because I love learning, and I wanted to learn more and learn deeper and understand things and understand myself. So that March was like life-changing. It was the end of March that was life-changing. So I started to implement that every time I would ride bike, at least like the first 10 minutes, I would show gratitude. I would show gratitude to everything that even hurt me, that made me cry, that everything that I felt betrayed by. I would show gratitude for my parents. I would show gratitude for my ex, because even though my ex had hurt me in so many ways, I was grateful because it had allowed me to find myself in ways I had never found myself. So I started to be grateful and show gratitude for everything. And it was something that I would do every single day. Every single day I would ride bike. I would always show gratitude for everything, even if the things that would hurt me, even if I didn't feel grateful about them, I would still express the gratitude. And I did that every day. And then one day, this was probably like 2 weeks of me doing that. Then one day, I'm riding bike, and after I did my whole gratitude thing, I am looking up the sky, and I can see the moon like in front of me, and behind me was the sun. But I look at the moon, and I'm looking at the trees, and I'm just like in awe, right? And all of a sudden I feel this sensation in my heart, like a little opening, like something moved, and I felt a connection to unconditional love for like, it lasted seconds, but the feeling just took over me, and I started crying. I started crying in the middle of riding bike, and I was like, oh my God, what was that? And I started crying because I had never felt unconditional. I have never felt love like that in my life. Like never. And I looked at the moon, and I'm like, it was coming from like from everywhere. And it was a split second, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so grateful because I have never felt this before. And I had a glimpse into what it feels like to feel love. And I was so blown away, and I was so grateful. I cried, and I didn't even know what I was crying. And then that happened, and I was in awe. Okay, that started to change me because I was in awe. And you know, a few days later, I was riding bike, because I was riding bike every single day, 12 miles a day almost. I started to get a lot of like sensations and symptoms coming up. Mostly sensations, not really symptoms, but sensations of like a sudden like the crawling ants, weird sensations on my face, moments of like really intense anxiety that I wasn't sure what was happening. And I did not know what was going on. I just know that something was going on, and I was actually scared because it was anxiety that I didn't recognize. Aside from like the crawling ants that were literally like all of my, half of my face and like part of my neck, I didn't know what was going on, and I was freaked out. So it was March 28th now. This is March 28th, and we are at it was a full moon, and I have two singing bowls. I have one for your perineum, and I have the one for the heart. And I decided to do the heart singing bowl outside that night, just to tune my energy in my heart, right? So I tuned my energy in my heart, and mind you, none of this was planned. I was just going with what I felt I wanted to do. And I went outside and I did my singing bowl. I went to take a shower, but I decided to take a bath, and I added salt to my bath, and I laid there. I was there laying in there, and then I came out. I went to my room, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna meditate. When I tell you that this was the most crazy experience I've ever had in my life, and most surreal and profound and life-changing experience, that I know that if I tell this to somebody, they're gonna think I'm crazy, okay? Because this is what happens when you have an experience and you're telling your truth, and people are gonna be like, yeah, you're nuts. Because when we have something that is not explainable, we're all labeled as crazy, and I've noticed that. So I shower, and I take a hot bath with salt water, because I added salt. I go to my room, I do my meditation, the meditation that I was doing, the heart coherence, the global heart coherence, and maybe 17 minutes into the meditation, I feel my body kind of wanting to elevate. Like, it's not even elevate, like it wants to push up. And I start to see these like white flashes in my eyes, like not even with my eyes closed, but I see white flashes, and I want to open my eyes and I cannot open them. All I'm seeing is just these white flashes, and I want to open my eyes, and I want to open my eyes, and I can't, and I start to feel very, very, very like scared, because I don't know what's happening, and I'm just seeing these white flashes. When I finally open my eyes, when I tell you that I started bawling, I started crying like I have never cried in my entire life. I was crying for a good 15 minutes, uncontrollable sobbing, and I did not know why. I had zero idea why I was sobbing that way. All I know is that it was this feeling of emotion that there was no way to, I had to just let what I was feeling run like a river down my face. And that's exactly what it was. It was just, I was a stream. I became a river of tears. It was like that for like 15 minutes. I finally stopped crying. I didn't know why I was crying. And I was like, I don't know what just happened. But I felt a sense of like a relief. And I decided to lay down. I'm laying down, and I am starting to feel weird. and the sensation is very weird. I don't know what's happening, and I start to get anxious, because that's the normal response. You get anxious. So I start to get anxious. So what happens is that I get up and I go to my sister's room, and I ask her, I'm like, do you mind if I can lay here for a little while? Because I'm not feeling right. I don't know what's going on. My sister's like, oh, you probably have an anxiety. It's probably anxiety, or you're having a panic attack. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. But I noticed that by the time I walk to my sister's room, I feel like my energy, my consciousness was growing. And I could not focus on nothing. Like, my mind could not focus on nothing. All I started to feel was this expansion and this expansion and expansion and expansion. My sister, I went to the bathroom and I came back and I sat in the bed with my sister, and I'm looking at the TV. She was watching a cartoon, and I'm looking at the cartoon, and I don't know what's happening with the cartoon. I don't know what's happening. I don't understand what's happening. I could not process the cartoon. All I felt was this expansion in like my mind opened up, and I was so, it's almost like if you were so high that you don't know. What I can tell you is I felt my heartbeat was like a needle. It was beating at 1,000,000 miles per hour, and I felt it at a distance, like it was distant. And I was like freaked out, because now I'm like, okay, what is happening? This is weird. This is scaring me. Something's happening to me. And suddenly this image comes to my mind, and it says, remember, you've watched testimonials of people who've had experiences with meditation, and when you're moving energy, people tend to have an experience of some sort. And that grounded me. And at this point, my sister's looking at me like, what is happening? Instead of me laying down, I sit up, I cross my legs, and I close my eyes, and I start to I look down the whole time. I'm like this, looking down with my eyes closed. And my sister's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm just looking down. I can see like in an abyss, because I was like, my mind was like in an abyss, and I can see like there was a little person somewhere really far away, like in some, I would say it was like a kaleidoscope type of geometric pattern all the way at the bottom. I couldn't tell, but I know that the person was sitting down like I was. And I'm watching that, and I start to feel waves, like literal waves, like the ocean waves, but they were moving through my body. Like they would come from like the bottom all the way up, and it would move. It was like a motion of waves just moving through my body. And it started really slow. And what I kept telling myself was, surrender to this, allow it to move through you, surrender to this, allow it to move through you. Just don't freak out, you are safe. And I allowed myself and surrendered to it. And the more that I would surrender, the more these waves of energy were like, they were literally beating me up. Like they were moving me. And like, it was like wave after wave after wave after wave after wave. And I was like, wow, I don't even know. And my sister kept seeing me like, what's happening here? And she thought that I was having an anxiety attack or something. But I was very quiet because I became silent. And suddenly I started to feel a buildup and a buildup and a buildup and a buildup. And I was like, this feeling feels very familiar. Like the feeling of this buildup in my chest was very, very familiar. And it was just intensifying with every motion of the wave that was like moving through my body and moving through my body. And suddenly, mind you, this already like, I'm probably already like 45, 50 minutes into this. And suddenly I feel like the energy moves all the way here, and it's here. And I feel like my body kind of like moved inward, and I went, and when like that, I'm telling you that it felt like there was climax in my chest, that my chest had a climax, like an orgasmic climax in my chest. And I felt this something just move out. And all of a sudden, I felt a wave of the deepest, most profound, unconditional love I have ever felt in my entire life. And it was so unexplainable. I don't think that anyone knows the magnitude of love that you feel. Unconditional love, there's nothing like it. And I don't think anybody can even imagine what it feels like, because I never imagined in my life that love felt that like that. And I started to feel connected, and I felt like I was a web. Like if I had web, like little, like I had like little web strings all over my entire body. And I was like, I started to see like a map of everything in the universe. Like I saw the trees, animals, people, everything, like every insect. I saw everything. And I felt like I was all of it. And also I was nothing at the same time. Like I was all of it and everything was me, but I was also the void. And it was all coming from within me, like inside me. And I started crying. I started screaming. I started screaming how grateful I was, that I couldn't believe I was experiencing this. I was like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm experiencing this. Oh my God, I'm so grateful. Oh my God, thank you. I was crying, yelling, screaming, laughing, because I would laugh because I was like, I'm so excited for tomorrow. I can't wait to wake up tomorrow and see how I feel. I'm so excited for tomorrow. My sister was like, what's happening? Because I went from yelling to like being grateful, to bawling, to laughing, to crying again, to like, I was a wave of emotions because I did not know what was happening. All I know is that I was feeling this deep unconditional love, and I connected to everything, and everything came from within me, and from within me I connected to everything. And my mom was like, my sister wanted to tell my mom like something's going on, like she needs something for anxiety. And I remember that I went through this whole thing. It lasted like almost 2 hours. The connection I felt to everything, I can never explain. All I know is that it was the most amazing thing I've ever felt in my life. And then after that experience, I was so tired. And I passed out. I fell asleep in my sister's room. And I wake up the next morning. And I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, what happened? Like, what just happened? What did I experience? What was last night? Was that even real? And when I tell you that from that moment on, my life changed. Hi, you guys. My entire life changed. My heart felt like it swelled, like it got full. And I had to remind myself that I was on earth and I was grounded here on earth, because I was in between dimensions of the experience and the opening of that energetic, I don't know how to explain it, but I was in another, it was like other dimensional, it was another dimension. And I was very expansive, very open, very whole. I was whole. And I was walking around feeling so whole for like about 2 weeks. And my friend, he came over like 2 days later after that experience, because I wanted everyone that I knew to feel that. I wanted people to feel that. And I was like, you need to meditate, you need to meditate, you need to meditate. You need to start doing this, because you can't believe like what I have felt. Like, this has changed my life. Like, I have never felt so much love in my life before. This is incredible. And like, it was the most I felt like something was healed in me. And I was like, oh my God, like I wanted everyone to feel what I felt, because unconditional love was like the most unexplainable thing I've ever felt in my life. So my friend came over and we were talking, and we were sitting in the pool with our feet in a pool. And I start to just stare at the clouds, and I'm looking at the clouds, and I start to rub my hands, and I look over to him, and he's like, I'm starting to feel really weird. He's like, I'm feeling weird. And I was like, I know, right? Like, I'm feeling a little weird too. And I started to tell him like all these things that I was seeing in the clouds. Like, I was getting very deep. And suddenly he starts to feel a certain way. And it's like I opened, or I expanded the energy where he had this whole experience by being in my energy field. And he was open to it, and he had an experience of his own. And I was like, what is going on? Because it was wild. But the fact that I connected to everything changed my life. And I think the reason why I am on this journey and this path is because that experience allowed me to see myself in a different way. To see myself in a different way, sorry. And I reached like 2021 from March 28 onwards to like February of 2022. I was really like on this roller coaster upwards, this mountain. But then February came and I fell into the ditch, and I have been trying to crawl myself out of there ever since. Because at that point, when I had that experience meditating, I didn't care about the patterns. I didn't care. Everything disappeared. Like, I was just me, and I did not even pay attention or give attention to anything that had boxed me in. But at that time, it was really hard. I had lost my job because of, it was 2020, and it was a difficult time. But luckily, I had money saved, so I had, I was doing okay. But that experience really is what took me to this peak. And then I think that what it did is that it unraveled all of my wounds that I had like within me, just opened up. And I started to like experience all of those wounds later on throughout the years. And that is where I am now, unraveling, moving through them, breaking through them, sharing my experience, saying my story. And it really did change me, because I know that we are more than what we believe or we've been told. Energy is real, and energy is who you are. Like, that is who you are. And you can shift. And you have to remember that you have to, when you're working with energy and you're meditating, you are connecting deeper within yourself, and you're going into the depths of yourself. You have to stay grounded, because you can easily go into a state of psychosis if you're not grounded. Because that time right after the meditation, I had like 2 weeks where I was in between dimension, that I had to keep reminding me like, hey, you're on earth, you're on earth. Because I was blissful. I was like on the clouds. Everything to me was like, oh wow, that's like beautiful. Everything, the color of the sky was brighter and like more blue. The trees were greener. I was flowing, like I felt like I was just flowing. My energy was so much open, and I did all this within the environment that I'm trying to escape from. So anything is possible, and I think that my meditation experience has led me here, and this is part of that experience that I had, because I feel like that experience was telling me or showing me that this would be me here today, now, and that I would be sharing my story with people, and that I would be being of service to people in some way or some form. So that was my experience meditating, and that was my meditation experience. I do want to continue meditating. I'm not meditating like I used to anymore. I would love to go back into that state of flow and oneness within myself, because it did help me a lot. It's just that sometimes my mind is so scattered that I don't do it. I don't know why. But I know this video was very long. I just needed to explain like my whole journey of meditating. I didn't get into detail of like the whole story, but I wanted to get into detail of like how I started and what happened and all those things, so that you guys would understand. I know this video is a little long, I'm so sorry, but that was my big meditation experience where I really felt the most unconditional love I've ever felt before, and my body was preparing me for that moment. That's why I had that heart-opening experience riding bike, that it was just like a little glimpse to something bigger that was coming, and I surrendered to it. And I know what unconditional love feels like, even if I've never had it from the people around me, because humans love with condition. Human love is conditional. I don't care what anybody tells me. Human love is conditional. But when you find the love within, there's nothing, I cannot explain how, there's no words to explain. It's just pure, infinite, divine, unconditional love that is greater than anything you can ever imagine. So I do plan to go back into my meditations, go back into focusing and moving forward in my life and creating the life that I want to live, and be in my own place and have my own little area for my meditations and have it like my sacred place. That's what I want to do. And my meditation has led me here, even with all my pains and all my wounds that I am unraveling. This is part of the process that I experienced. I think that is why I'm here on this platform sharing. And I just want to say that I'm so grateful for every single one of you who have become a part of this community and have shown me so much love and care and support. And I just always want to let you know that I am so grateful. I don't take anything for granted, and I'm just happy to be here. So I will see you really soon. Thank you so much for watching this very long video. And yeah, remember to be authentic. Your authenticity is your superpower, okay? And don't let anybody dim your light, ever. No matter if your truth sounds crazy, it's your truth, it's your experience. Don't let anybody take that from you. And I will always walk in my truth, and I'll always stand by my experience and my truth. So you need to do the same. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you really soon.